following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We reach round number 7 of the iRacing V8 Supercars official series, the second phase of this season's championship, if you will. And to kick it all off, we have a bell ringer of an event as we head to a circuit that takes the concrete jungle tagline away from the circuit of Montreal, because the streets of Detroit are just that little bit more vicious. You're watching V8 Online's coverage tonight live on the iRacing Esports Network, which continues to grow day after day. And if you are new here and are liking what you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Belle Albert, one of 2 commentators here tonight, with the second being Mr. Zachary Hanlon, who will be joining us shortly, and Jay Kennedy, who's back on his feet and will be working with the cameras. And well, as much as we love our very own Scott Fountain here at V8 Online, the most important Scott Fountain here tonight is the one on the exit of Turn 10. Which is just one of many unique little features around this 3.8 kilometer circuit, which makes its debut on the official series calendar here tonight. But no feature is quite as unique around this circuit as the remarkably bumpy surface, which is combined with concrete walls lurking on the exit of every single corner, just waiting for any one of the 28 drivers we have here tonight to lose their concentration for just a millisecond. And concentration is so critical in qualifying. As we can see at the moment, the top of the timesheets are just 7/100ths of a second between Dane Warren and Josh Rogers. Rogers didn't quite get the first lap hooked up as much as he would have liked, and does have to settle for P number 2 on the grid, but still plenty of drivers firing their way around this circuit, one of which is Wayne Burke. Currently aligns himself in P number 8. Around the second half of this lap, where it does have a very big character difference, this is a lot more flowing than perhaps the first part of the circuit. Now into one of the hardest corners, where it's so bumpy and putting the traction down is so difficult, you would never believe it. And now into this final 2 sections of corners, the double right-hander, fire it into the first, get as close as you can to the wall on the exit, and plant the throttle down this front straight, which does not want to be straight at all. It is a little bit of a kink, and on old tires, which they will be very old at the end of 27 laps here tonight, will be very much struggling for grip as Wayne Burke does improve, but does not improve position-wise, unfortunately. So that is a big shame for him. Still, a few more drivers trying to get some experience around this track, even if they are actually finished with qualifying. A lot of drivers going onto their 3rd laps on this circuit, which is a bit of a unique thing we don't often see. One driver that is on their 2nd lap, hasn't had their first time registered, is a name we haven't seen for quite some time, but we are so thankful to have him back, Kazuki Umeshima for Radicals Online Racing, a very large team in the sim racing world, and have made their appearance in the V8s previously, and he returns, the awesome Japanese driver who is always entertaining to watch. And as we watch him through his final section of corners at the moment in the number 2 car, so a very high R rating at the moment. Only Josh Rogers does beat him, a fellow competitor in the online World Championship Grand Prix series. But at the moment, Umeshima doesn't look like he's as comfortable in this V8 as he used to be, of course. Did take quite a lot of months away from this car, so it looks like he will be starting around the mid-pack if this lap does get completed. I'll wait and see as he heads his way across the start-finish line now, and it was not another registered time. So Umashima, not even mid-pack, it's going to be right down the back of the field, which is 28 cars strong here tonight. A very strong field, racking in at over 3.7 thousand iRating strength of field, which is fantastic to see because this championship continues to get closer and closer with every day. Currently topping the championship standings is Jared Filsell on 722 points, but only just under 30 points clear of his teammate Sam Blacklock with the drop rounds taken into account. Borzin Al-Nabi, Wayne Burke, and Cooper Webster all in that tight little fight for that third spot as well. So a lot of drivers at the moment really getting very competitive in this series, which is fantastic to see that everyone is really beginning to mark this championship. It's one of the big ones they want to win at the end of this season. But with that, qualifying is just about done. We only have a few cars on track, which includes Thomas McMillan, Greg Sharp, and Kazuki Umashima, but none of their laps look like they will be improving. So let's kick off what will be a 28-car field here at Detroit Circuit Belle Isle. It will be led away by these 27 laps by Dane Warren with a fantastic lap just over the 1 minute 30 second mark. Josh Rogers came so close to knocking him off the top step, but was not able to do it. Brady Myers for TTL Esports lines up in P number 3 with Riley Blythe and Brett Loxton, your top 5. Jordan Ross lines up in P number 6 ahead of second place in the championship, who stands a lot to gain in this race, Sam Blacklock from P number 7. Wayne Burke from P number 8 with Josh Nowak, your major series championship leader at the moment, in P number 9. Thomas McMillan, always entertaining, from P number 10. Emily Jones kicks things off from P number 11 with Brian Borg, Jay McKnight, Corey Preston, and Sam Sutton, your top 15. Tim Harris kicks things off from P number 16, and just behind him is Brenton Hobson, someone we expect to see so much further up in these races, but not able to do anything in qualifying this time around. Marie Hrushka actually got an identical lap to Hobson, but on her ASM All-Star Motorsports debut will kick things off from P number 18. Daniel Williams from 19th with Steve Jansen, your top 20. Mitch McLeod probably on no practice from 21st. Craig Jones, P22. Wayne Taylor, David Miller, Jean-Francois Arsenault, that's a horrible pronunciation from me there, from P number 25. Greg Sharp from P number 26, and Kazuki Umashima and Brendan Jackson not able to register lap times for this race, which is going to be so difficult because passing opportunities are limited here, but a big opportunity comes at the very start of the lap at turn number 3. So we'll wait and see if anyone's feeling brave on this first lap of 27, because strategy is out the window here today. We're not expecting to see any pit stops. The drivers will all be focusing on tire life, because tires at the end of a stint here will get horrible, as we do here revs rising for 27 laps here at Detroit Belle Isle, the first ever time, and we are underway, and it's a great start from the front for Dane Warren there, immediately into the lead as we see scrapping at the back. Josh Nowak on a horrible start, 3 wide into turn number 1. Looks like we are all clean through turns number 1 and 2 so far. Bits of contact here and there though, but for the most part, it looks like we are all okay. Heading towards turn number 1. Jordan Ross slow on the run to turn number 3. So must have picked up a slowdown somewhere or damage to his car as they fight their way into a big braking zone for turn number 3. You can see one of the TTL cars trying to make up a lot of moves early in this race, but they have to sort themselves out quite early here because it does tighten up and gets very dangerous. Already hearing of a few casualties as Brady Myers tries to put a bit of pressure on Josh Rogers at the moment. Not able to do it as Dane Warren has absolutely bolted from this field. So he has had a fantastic start in the number 4 All-Star Motorsports car. Of course, a defending champion of this series himself, so he knows how to win these races, and he's out to a fantastic start at the moment. Behind, we have a big dive from one of the drivers. I think that's Wayne Burke, up the inside and into the side of one of the All-Star Motorsports cars. Pile up time here at Belle Isle. Big damage to a few of the cars here as they try and make their way around. That could have been so much worse, as they still try and make moves. And the All-Star Motorsports car of McMillan spun again, potentially lucky not to take more cars with him, but so far so good in terms of the field, not having a major issue. 1 or 2 little chaos moments, absolutely, as we expect here at Belle Isle, but only a few cars walking away with damage. Mitch McLeod, one of the McMillan, will be limping to the pits with damage and trying to let the field go as it gets very claustrophobic in those last sections of corners. But back up to our race leaders as they make their way past the first lap, and as Dane Warren with an absolutely stonking first lap, already 1 second clear of Josh Rogers, which is such a hard feat to do. Brady Myers for TTL Esports is following Josh Rogers as they get very squirrely for breaking into turn number 3. But also another driver trying to make moves as Brett Loxton tried to make something happen with Riley Blythe. Almost made himself come under pressure from Sam Blacklock in the background as well. So, and Blacklock's actually got an issue there, so he's going slowly, must have picked up a slowdown. Fortunately for him, he does have clean air to the battle pack behind, which includes Josh Nowak side by side, gets contact, and into the wall hard! And this is going to collect a lot of cars. What are the cars? Jay McKnight. What are the TTL cars? The number 3 of Sam Sutton, who makes his return after a long way out. And now, big damage to a few cars, try and spin their way around. But I think Josh Nowak very well could be done for the day. Sam Sutton, big damage to his car as well, and unfortunately, I thought he might have been okay, but that car does not look healthy in any way, shape, or form. So big drama already at the start of this race. A lot of drivers getting involved in little incidents and getting damage to their car. And this race is as much of a survival race as it is an out-and-out sprint race. You have to make sure you're looking after your tires, of course. We said at the start this would be a very critical part of this race, but looking after your car, keeping the body panels in check, making sure that you're not, being over-aggressive, overworking the car and getting unnecessary damage is going to be so critical to your race result at the end of these 27 laps. Dane Warren at the moment, just an absolutely fantastic job. 2.3 seconds now. Absolutely flying ahead of Josh Rogers at the moment. Brenny Myers not able to live with Rogers as well. But then we do have the 2 cars behind, Riley Blythe and Brett Loxton just a little bit behind as well. So we'll wait and see if those 2 can develop into a bit more of a battle. That, of course, dropped Sam Blacklock, who had that issues at the start of the 2nd lap. So Blacklock already not off to the strongest start, and he really has to capitalize in this race. Of course, Jared Philsell, championship leader and teammate to Blacklock, not turning up for this event, and with a big strength of field, big points on offer here, so big championship implications if he can make it work, as Loxton makes his way side by side with the driver O'Reilly Blythe through this braking zone, which you have to go through a kink as well, so easy to unload a tire, lock it up, and unfortunately for Loxton, not able to make it work around the outside, which should be to expect, in all honesty, a very tough corner with a lot of bumps on the inside as well. So we'll wait and see if Loxton can set something up, because his best opportunity is going to come around the turn number 3 place, and he's very close under the rear wing of the Evolution Racing Team Falcon, which I have to check, it has purple rims on today. So I am not a fan of Riley Blythe today, so we'll wait and see if Brett Loxton can make something happen as they final their way down this front straight now. And Loxton just needs to get himself a couple of tenths of a second forward here, get himself a bit closer under the rear wing of the 12 car, misses the first apex, which makes him a lot tighter through the left-hander, so I don't think he's going to be able to make anything happen on this particular lap. So Loxton having to wait once again. But he's not the only driver in a bit of a battle out on track at the moment, one of which is Jay McKnight, who is currently in a bit of a damaged Evolution Racing Team car after that issue for Josh Nowak. But he has Tim Harris behind at the moment for TTL Esports. So we'll see if he can do anything. And, well, we do have Kazuki Umeshima trying to make some moves, and he does make moves, but only because Marie Hrushka makes a mockery of the turn number 3 corner there. And that was a big disaster there for her. So we'll wait and see if she can try and recover just a little bit. But for the moment, Kazuki Umeshima having an absolutely fantastic race at the moment, finds himself up to P number 13 from 27th on the grid, which is a fantastic effort there. And I believe after a little while in this race, we might be joined by Zach Hanlon.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bo. What a bit of a scrappy start we've had to this one. We've already got 6 cars that are pretty much out or out thereabouts. We still see a couple of cars like Wayne Burke got caught up earlier. He's still trundling around, albeit with a missing bonnet. But yeah, everyone just getting into the groove right now. A couple of battle packs still going. Brian Borg's being hunted fairly keenly by Emily Jones, and she's in a bit of a sandwich there with Corey Preston tailing up behind her too. And
Rogers
just behind, yeah, in fact, Rogers is going down the order on the timing screen, and he's back
blinking in and out a little bit.
Yeah, I think he might have had an internet connection there, an internet connection issue just as he was coming over the line there, and he started going back through the timing, but he is back up in position number 2, trailing our leader Dane Warren by 1.9 seconds at this stage. So Josh going to have to get a little more rhythm going if he wants to start working that gap back. Still looking like it's about 1.8 seconds at the moment. So he is starting to bring that back very slightly. But Dane Warren has done a very good job early on to get that nice little jump and just stay out of the way and stay, most importantly, out of the walls and the barriers here at Belle.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you were just alluding to there, Rogers is actually on a bit of a charge now. 7/10 of a second last time around, quicker than Dane Warren. So Warren was out to a very healthy lead of about 2.5 seconds, finds its way down to 1.9. And from my Delta screen at the moment, down to 1.8 currently. And we'll wait and see how it is at the start-finish line. But Rogers, we know how quick he is. We know how fast he can be in one of these V8 Supercars. And just getting into the wall just a little bit on the exit there, but no harm, no foul for Rogers. But on his way across start-finish line, the gap stays about 1.9 seconds. But if you want to be technical, it came down by 1/100th of a second. But nonetheless, Warren has to start looking after his tyres a bit, because we know here, Zach, this is a real tyre killer of a circuit. And with no pit stops here today, tyres are going to be feeling it after 27 laps.
Yeah, I don't envy these guys having to go 27 laps around Belle on one set of boots, but you know, that's something that everyone's going to be taking into account. Kazuki Umeshima making his way back through the field now, just having a little bit of a look on Hobo, just showing his intention, goes very late on the brakes, pulls out, and a very nice move there by Kazuki Umeshima. Just needs to be wary that Brenton's not going to try and come back at him, but doesn't seem to be doing so. And Brenton will probably try and follow Kazuki as he starts charging his way through the likes of Jamie McKnight and Tim Harris. But yeah, as you were saying, Bo, the tyres are going to be very critical tonight. 31 degrees track temp is not too bad in terms of a track temperature. Normally would seems a little higher than that, but 31's fairly reasonable, so they'll still have some nice traction on those rear Dunlops. And now Kazuki has worked his way up to the back of Jamie McKnight already and trying to get a little bit of a run as they come through. I believe that's turn number 11 there, and this is where he can start setting up Jamie McKnight for a pass in the next couple of corners. His next two right-handers are fairly high speed, and it is very difficult to make a move through there unless you are very much faster than your opponents. But I think Kazuki's going to have to wait until he comes down into the braking zone here at turn number 1, and just opting to bail out of that. Going to follow Jamie through this little turn 1 and 2 section, maybe go for a bit of a dive down into turn number 3, which is probably the most prominent overtaking position on this track. So Kazuki looking good in the slipstream of Jamie McKnight, pulls out to the inside, nice and late on the brakes. Jamie McKnight pulls over and says, there you go, mate, you have that one. And Kazuki Umeshima makes up another position up into spot number 11 now, after starting 27th on the grid. So doing an absolutely fantastic job so far, and by the looks of it, keeping all the panels on that Holden Commodore very clean as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone from the commentary box heard me before the race started, I was extremely excited to see Kazuki Umeshima back in this field, because he does this every single time, puts on a fantastic show, always very quick, very clean, and very decisive in his overtakes, and doing a fantastic job. Another driver who came from the back of the field and is trying to make some moves up is Brendan Jackson for Velocity Sim Racing at the moment, and he finds himself up 10 spots at the moment, which is all you have to do at Belle Isle, because he has just simply kept out of trouble and let everyone else make mistakes around him, and he finds himself plenty of positions up on his grid slot. So he's doing a fantastic job as Wayne Burke actually tries to get a move done on the driver of Steve Jansen there. So Wayne Burke, of course, we saw him have that issue at the start of the race with a lot of damage still on the Synergy Sim Racing car, making his way back through the field. So we'll keep an eye on how Wayne Burke goes, because a lot of drivers out of position at the moment and having to fight their way back through, as Brenton Hobson now finds himself trying to make his way back through, as Jamie McKnight is the car just in front of him, and he gets a big wobble on the exit of turn number 2. And even though Hobbo is a long way back, that exit is going to hurt McKnight quite a lot. So Hobbo sees the invitation, thinks about it, but will have to RSVP another time, because the door just wasn't open on this occasion.
Yeah, Jamie went pretty deep on the brakes there. It was kind of half-hearted from both of them, I think. One of them tried to kind of defend, and the other one kind of tried to attack, but neither of them were really sure about what each other were doing, and they both just decided to call it a day and stay as they were. So that's going to help, well, it's not going to help Brenton Hobson there. He probably really wanted to stay up behind Kazuki Umeshima for as long as possible and just keep that momentum flowing with him and follow him down the straight so that he can possibly, I mean, they don't really have to worry about fuel saving, I guess, but just save himself a bit of effort and a bit of time on each lap by having that slipstream, maybe not having to use up the rear tires as much as they would like. But there are a couple of battles still forming. Corey Preston is still behind Emily Jones. Emily just getting a little bit squirrely as she comes out of turn number 13 there, and Corey's been trying to latch onto her for the last few laps. He's made up a little bit of ground, is definitely closer than he has been in the last couple of laps, and Emily has slightly fallen off Brian Borg as well, although Corey not getting the best exit out of turn number 2 there, and he'll have to reside in that position number 9 for a few more corners at least. And Kazuki Umeshima has done a fantastic job of rolling in Tim Harris so quickly, and he's catching up to Corey Preston, Emily Jones, and Brian Borg at a fairly decent rate as well, so he should be up on them fairly soon. But we can see there is quite a large gap as Kazuki actually just tapped the wall as he was coming into turn number 4 there, I believe, or turn number 6 actually, pardon me, just on entry there, just scraping the wall. But there's quite a large gap between a lot of these battle packs just because of those massive accidents that we had earlier that have just really split the group up for the time being.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a shame to see, but if any driver can make up that ground, I think it's Kazuki Umeshima, the second fastest driver last time around, and only finds himself down in P number 11 at the moment. So a lot of pace yet to come from the Radicals online driver. So we'll see what he can do with the driver of Tim Harris just in front, who gets a big moment heading through the penultimate corner, well, depending on what you want to call the penultimate corner. Because of course, this straight with a big kink on it, that could be defined as a corner. I'm not going to call it a corner because you can see Kazuki Umeshima flat on the throttle heading in towards turn number 1. And he has to start setting a move up. Takes a very wide exit, with a very tight exit through turn number 1. Opens up to the left-hander, which allows him to have so much more straight line speed. And okay, so there was an issue for Tim Harris.
Wow.
A slowdown there, very close indeed. And he had a slowdown, and Kazuki Umeshima just had to jump on the brakes to avoid contact and then get the move done. But probably know how Kazuki was imagining that move would go, but he's through nonetheless, Zach.
Yeah, I'm not even... I'd be surprised if Tim Harris actually had a slowdown there, or if he actually just decided to pull over and let him through. But Kazuki definitely wouldn't have been expect to pull out very quickly from out behind. And just up ahead of those guys, Emily Jones is continuing to just fall away from Brian Borg ever so slightly, and Corey Preston ever closer. And I dare say that Corey's will be spurred on by the fact that he now has the Radicals online machine of Kazuki Umeshima right behind him, or right in his mirrors now. So the gap starting to close already, and this little battle pack for 7th and 9th are going to have to start getting a move on, because Kazuki Umeshima has been looking last few laps, been pulling in about 0.6 of a second each lap. Might be as dramatic as they come around on this plus Tim Harris, and it is not only about 0.04 of a second there, but Emily Jones and Corey Preston matching each other for lap times to the 1,000th of a second. So very impressive from those guys. Corey Preston very close this time round, but not quite close enough to pull off a move on anything just at the moment. And Brenton Hobson actually just making his way past Jamie McKnight as they came down into turn number 3. He got stuck behind Jamie a lot longer than I thought he would, actually. So Brenton now has a bit of clear air, hopefully, to start working his way back up to Tim Harris and try and make a bit of progress, much like Kazuki.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Brenton Hobson was a bit further down the grid than we would often see, starting down in P number 17, which is a bit of a shock. But nonetheless, making some ground at the moment with some very nice pace. But this battle pack, including Emily Jones and Corey Preston, continues to tighten up just a little bit. But I'm seeing Emily's car just getting quite loose on the exits now, so perhaps rear tyres already beginning to play a bit of a factor on the Trans-Tasman racing car. Not the best exit there as well So Emily beginning to struggle a bit, which is quite worrying because we're not even at the halfway stage of this race yet. So we'll wait and see if Emily can have anything to fight with at the moment, because once again on the exit, they're just not quite as stable as the other cars. And if you look at someone like her teammate Sam Blacklock, he's able to drive the car off the corner quite cleanly, not, you know, wildly getting oversteer, but nonetheless, Emily with a lot of oversteer in that car at the moment. One driver that doesn't have oversteer, but does have a driver in front of him, is Brett Loxton, who's right under the rear wing once again of Riley Blythe for 4th position. And Riley's continuing just to hit his marks, drive his own lines, and in some ways, this is a circuit which really does favor that, as Emily Jones, I'm saying, does get past Brian Borg eventually up the inside, just about leaves room on the exit. Now the two cross-continental motorsports cars almost side by side through this section of the track. Not somewhere you want to go side by side, but nonetheless, they just about managed to sort it out. But this is now allowed Kazuki Umeshima into this fight, and Corey Preston lights the rear tires out of that corner, and you don't want to give Kazuki Umeshima too much of an incentive to get a move done down the inside. Thinks about it, goes out a little bit wide here, and does go up the inside. A very late move up the inside, and Preston does leave more than enough room, and Kazuki up one more spot. So a fantastic drive there. Next target of him with Brian Borg, who's also looking for redemption on Emily Jones. So all of a sudden, this battle pack has well and truly exploded as Riley Blythe continues to hold off Brett Loxton, who is not making any progress at the moment. So we'll stick with this battle, including Emily Jones, Brian Borg, and a whole bunch of other cars now, because this pack has now also included Tim Harris for TTL Esports. So Zach, this battle pack continues to grow and grow.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like they have too many other cars around them that they can add to it, but Emily Jones doing a really nice job of getting past Brian Borg and getting herself out of that cross-continental sandwich. But Kazuki Umeshima now looking to get past Brian Borg, and Kazuki has the double slipstream here. Don't think he's enough. Did look very handy on Corey Preston going into turn number 7 there. I think that's something he's probably picked up from watching the IndyCars go around this beautiful Belle circuit. I know that's a favorite of a lot of the IndyCar drivers, and you can see that Kazuki is using the rear of the car very aggressively to get that thing turned, and he's got a lot more speed than Corey Preston. So as they come down the Strand Drive now down into turn number 7, he's going to try and have a go on the inside of turn number 7, and he's got it all sorts of locked up and just manages to keep it on. Brian Borg goes round.
Yep,
and
Corey Preston
went straight through there as well.
Completely overshot and had to flick spin it in the escape road. So very lucky for Corey Preston. But that was one of the few corners that doesn't have a concrete wall in front of you, and you can in fact turn the car around. What that's done is allowed McKnight and Hobson both up one spot, and also the driver of Tim Harris will benefit from that as well. So this battle pack continues to go off bit by bit as the gap at the front of this field comes down to 1.2 seconds. Just quietly, Josh Rogers has been nipping and tucking away at that lead for Dane Warren. So we'll see how it progresses. 0.2 of a second faster was the drive of Josh Rogers last time around, as the battle pack, including Brian Borg and Umeshima, continues to heat up just a little bit. Borg did not get the exit he would have liked, and you can see there Umeshima already thinking about a crisscross under brakes, but decides better of it this time around. But you can be sure if any opportunity presents itself, Umeshima will go for it as they head through such a tricky section of circuit where you really do have to just be so careful of the surroundings of your car, not to knock a front panel off, not to damage the aero on the car at all, as Umeshima continues just to use the rear tires to rotate the car quite a lot. Lights it up on the rear tires again, and he has a good run, but he has to do better than he did last time. He was very aggressive, had the car on the lock stops under the brakes as he heads into this tricky section of braking zone, as it has a kink in it, and he can't do anything on this occasion.
No, Brian Borg doing a good job to defend that line, and yeah, Kazuki obviously having a bit of trouble the last time round, and maybe just being a little more cautious, using a wider entry through this section here at turn number 12. And now as they come through 13 and 14, he's going to be tucked up right behind the back of Brian Borg, almost pushing him through turn number 13 there. And he's going to have a nice run now down into turn 1 and 2. He might even get the move done before we get down into turn number 3, but I suspect that he'll just tuck in and focus on getting a nice exit. You can see he's hugging the apex a lot nicer than Brian Borg there, just taking a slightly wider entry, which gives him much more exit speed. And you can see now Brian Borg looking to hug the inside of the track. He doesn't want to let Kazuki pass without a fight. Kazuki's going to have to go the long way around, but he's got massive braking performance there. Not quite good enough though. Brian Borg going to hold it around the outside. Kazuki got a couple of wheels on the grass there. Not going to be able to pull it off this time. Going for a bit of a crisscross, and again, might try and, give a bit of a tap as they came into the corner, and he's in the wall! Oh no, Kazuki on machine was doing so well, and just having a bit of contact with the rear of Brian Borg's car there, and that has stopped his run immensely. Still able to carry on, and didn't hit the wall too heavily, so might get away with that. Doesn't, he's having a look on board now. It doesn't look like he has any real steering damage at the moment, so he'll be able to continue on, but having a lot of work to do now, even behind Corey Preston, who had to flick spin it at turn 7 a few laps ago.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a massive shame for Kazuki Mishima. Finds himself now all the way down to P number 14 after he started the lap in 9th, looked for 8th place, but it wasn't quite to be. Just on that last lap as well, we also had Brett Loxton get the move finally done on Riley Blythe, only to immediately lose the spot once again to Riley. So these two having a fantastic fight, and what that has meant is that Sam Blacklock has been able to make this ground up now, and now finds himself in this battle for P number 4, as Loxton continues just to not be able to get the power down. Putting your wheels in the grass, not going to do anything to help that at all. But nonetheless, he's really sliding the car around, getting aggressive, getting impatient behind the driver of Riley Blythe, who continues just to hit his marks, drive his apexes, get the car square, off the corners, on the throttle nicely, and that's all he has to do. But it just means that Loxton has no real opportunities at the moment, and he's using up the rear tires so much more, which is only going to hurt him later on into this stint, because Riley's still going to have plenty of grip in that ERT Falcon, whereas Brett Loxton is going to have nothing and will come under pressure from Sam Blacklock a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Sam has been closing in while these guys have been battling quite a bit, and his lap times have been pretty good throughout this entire race. His fastest lap was actually faster than the two guys ahead of him. So definitely a chance that he's going to be able to close up on these guys as well. And Riley Blythe just getting a little bit of oversteer coming into turn number 13 there. And now he's going to have to make sure that he gets a nice exit. I think turn 1 and 2 is really the most critical area of this track, just ensuring that you have the most speed coming out of that corner. And Brett Loxton almost losing it completely. Just, wow. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Brent, keep that wheel straight, mate, and you'll do a little better. But he manages to keep it straight for the time being. And the little eyes in the headlights of his car will have to continue daring at the back of Riley Blythe's car. But I really feel like, because one thing that we're not really all that accustomed to, Bo, driving GT cars, we don't really have all that much adjustability in our cars, albeit, ABS strength and traction control strength and brake bias. These guys have the anti-roll bars to play with, and I think that that's something a few of these guys might be doing around this part of the stint, is just playing around with the anti-roll bars as the balance of the car changes, softening the rear to try and get a little more traction, not as much turn in, or softening up the front to try and get a little more grip mid-corner. So guys, I guess that's the real strategy of today, is going to be playing around with your bars to make sure that your car lasts and it has a bit of speed. But Brett Loxton's just trying to look for every which way around Riley Blythe right now. But those matte purple rims just keeping him one step ahead of this stage.
Yeah, I'd much rather you didn't mention those rims. They are absolutely horrible. One thing isn't horrible is side by side down the front straight when there's a kink in the middle as well. Loxton trying everything he can. Couldn't do it, and I don't think that was a smart call, because he's now once again tightened up turn 1, which hurts his exit on through turn number 2 and means he doesn't get the run. Loxton isn't setting the car up how he needs to through turn 1 and 2. He's not giving himself the best opportunity, and you can see there he's good on the brakes into turn number 1, but doesn't have the amount of gap that he needs to be able to successfully get that move done. And consistently, we've seen But Riley just being able to hold that car so much tighter through turn number 1, open up turn number 2, carry the better corner speed, get on the power earlier, which also limits how much the car will actually begin to wheel spin over that little crest as well, which we saw even a Corvette pace car have an accident in the real world. So it's something you do have to be very, very mindful of, and Loxton just not able to work that out at the moment, or just not having the setup to work that kind of style at the moment, as Blythe goes very deep into that corner, but nonetheless keeps it out of the barriers. But now Blacklock so close, he is going to be able to put on a lot of pressure onto Loxton in the next lap or two, as Daniel Williams makes a position up, but only because Wayne Burke has spun the car in the middle of the circuit, and drivers, it was 2 each side at one point there. That was actually a very cool display of driving from those drivers, as 2 went left, 2 went right, but very dangerous rejoin for the driver of Wayne Burke there, as I think that's also the driver of Steve Jansen going side by side with Marie Hrushka on an All-Star Motorsports debut. That's very, very close, and Jansen gets a hit in the back as well from Brendan Jackson. That is not a place you want to go side by side, and he found out exactly why you don't go side by side. Now puts himself under a lot of pressure into this final few sections of corners, but he might just get away with it. But that was a very risky move, and something I don't believe necessarily had to happen.
No, yeah, a bit of excessive bumping there, but you know, in the V8 Supercars, that's always something that you have a high chance of likelihood to have to deal with. And this little battle pack, which is headed up by who's that? That is Marie Hrushka, I think, up at the front there, looking pretty feisty. All these cars behind her: Steve Jansen, Brendan Jackson, Craig Jones, Greg Sharp, and Wayne Burke now working his way back through after another bit of unfortunality for him. Might be getting up near that incident limit that we saw a few people hitting last week, although don't think that we're going to be quite...
Jansen with a huge
Jansen puts Hrushka into the wall, and that is a very sad sight, and she's going to just play it cool there and let Wayne Burke through, and probably just regain her composure and try and work her way back through, follow Wayne through the train. But yeah, Steve Jansen getting very feisty down the inside there, and just nailing Marie Hrushka into the outside wall at turn number 3 there.
Yeah, that was over ambitious and a half, I think, for Steve Jansen there. That gap was not open, and he just decided to send it up the inside, and unfortunately has just about ended Marie Hrushka's race. She is still at the back of his battle pack, but I suspect a lot of damage that All-Star Motorsports car aero-wise, potentially steering as well. So big shame there. But Sam Blacklock is a driver on a charge at the moment, attacking Brett Loxton, who continues to struggle with turn number 2 at the moment. Loxton tries to go, he takes the normal racing line. Blacklock thought about a crisscross there, didn't have the margin to do so on this particular lap. So this battle pack, well and truly a 3-car fight now for that P number 4, which appears to be hotly contested here today. Gap out the front has expanded back up to 2.5 seconds, so Warren just holding onto that lead, and Rogers doesn't look like he has anything with him today. Brady Myers does look set for P number 3, but P number 4 still well and truly up for grabs at the moment, as they head to just 7.5 laps to go, as Loxton gets very late on the brakes and puts himself in a bit of an awkward situation there as well. But nonetheless, still doing a good job holding P number 5. And every one of these drivers at the moment has an equal chance, I think, of getting P number 4, with just how this circuit plays favorites. It plays no favorites at all. So one little mistake, and that can be your race all over in a heartbeat. But at the moment, Riley Blythe just very good in this final half of the lap, able to pull out enough of a margin. But Loxton doesn't have much of a chance heading through turns 1 and 2. So we'll wait and see if Loxton can do anything Hail Mary potentially into turn 1 and 2 and make up a bit of that margin. But on this lap, I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either. But I'm just actually having a look at Brenton Hobson now. He's looking very eager on the back of Brian Borg as they're coming through turn number 14 into turn number 1 and 2. And Brian's been looking very strong throughout this race in turn 1 and 2, except he runs wide there. And Brenton going to get a nice run out of turn number 2. Now, surely this is going to open up. Oh, no, he just put down the throttle way too hard as he was coming out of the exit there. And that has destroyed what I think would have been a very easy overtake. And his Brian Borg's teammate, Corey Preston, now is having a look down the inside of Jamie McKnight and Kazuki Umeshima, tucked in right behind as well, looking to make his way past a few more cars before this race is over. So Corey Preston now going around the outside, just using a bit of only barely any overlap there. And oh wow, Jamie McKnight getting very squirrely out of turn number 6, and that's going to give Corey Preston the advantage as they come down the straight with some more speed. But Jamie McKnight has the inside line, and he's going to keep it there for the time being. And Corey Preston having to squeeze against the wall, just making it through. And Kazuki Yamashima says, I will take that one, thank you very much, sliding it down there very nicely. And now looking to get past Jamie McKnight, who's just looking a little bit wayward through this section of corners here.
Tim Harris.
Very nice.
Tim Harris has big damage.
Oh, he's got big damage to that car. I'm just going to go on board. Yeah, his steering is completely gone. He's on a 90-degree angle to turn that car. And Kazuki Yamashima up as well has just hit the wall almost on the straight part between turn, I think 12 and 13 there. He's looking past Jamie McKnight as well. So these walls at Detroit are not holding any secrets. And they are making sure that everyone knows that you do not want to touch them or you're going to have big issues. As Kazuki Yamashima now looking to make his way past Jamie McKnight. Jamie taking a defensive line and stopping Kazuki right in his tracks. But Kazuki's been looking very fast. And Jamie using up his rear tires as much as he possibly wants to before the end of the race. Mate, you've still got another 5 laps left on those things. I'd save a little more. But Kazuki now hunting his way up. See if he goes for another move down the inside of turn 7. The attitude of the car says he's looking for it, and he's trying to pressure Jamie into taking that very, very tight line. And you can see now perfect little crisscross there to try and now this is where it's all going to pay off for him. If he can quite make it, not quite. Just trying to make Jamie take very tight lines so Kazuki can take all that momentum and speed through the corners and try and get an upper hand. But on this time,
Whoa! Corey Preston with a huge accident!
Oh,
what
that's
on
massive.
earth has happened there?
Well,
all of a sudden,
get a Cut Price
dear.
Racing replay of that
Zach,
for you.
We've had a return of Corey Preston Airlines.
Oh, really? Yeah, Corey Preston Air. Looks like the Australian government got their funding back, and Corey Preston. It doesn't look like it was as good as a launch as last time. Last time, I think he at least got through the lower atmosphere. Unfortunately, Corey Preston not even making it over the barriers this time, but he is straight into the pits, and a very minor touch with the wall there for Corey Preston turns out to be a very big problem. And that problem is his race is now done. And a couple more cars battling towards the back of the pack. Greg Sharp having a look down the inside of Craig Jones. They come down into turn 3, makes that work. Yeah, Hrushka's gone through as well as she's gained her composure back up and is looking to make her way back through the pack and holding it hard around the outside of Craig Jones, and will finally make that move stick. So nicely done there. But yeah, it's all starting to get a bit crazy in these last 5 laps at down here in Detroit.
Absolutely. We said it expect the unexpected, but I think this race has delivered a little bit more than any of us could have expected. But this battle pack for P number 4 still trying to rage on, but it's just a little bit more spread out at the moment. Blythe has done a very good last few amount of laps just to extend that lead just a little bit, whereas Brett Loxton does not have any opportunities now. And even Blacklock just trying to get a little bit closer. But I've got to say, Sam Blacklock does not look like he's had the pace here today. Of course, we saw him at Imola last week, put on a fantastic display and absolutely blitzed the field in the first stint of the race. But really struggled here today on in an event that he really had to take advantage of. It's a high strength of field for this championship. And his championship contender, Jared Filsell, does not show up. So Blacklock really needed a stronger result than P number 6 at the moment. As Kazuki Umeshima finds his way down an escape road, doesn't like flick spin the car, just decides to reverse. And he is still stopped at the moment. This is pretty terminal.
No, I think he was trying to rev the car.
Oh!
Oh, and almost contact as they came back on there. And Marie Hrushka's had a bit of an eye. She's gone into the back of Brendan Jackson as he was trying to avoid Kazuki there. Yeah, I think when Kazuki was back in neutral and he was trying to pick first gear in these V8 Supercars, if you rev the engine a little too much, the gears don't exactly like meshing with each other, as I don't believe they have, or most straight cut boxes don't have synchros or anything like that. So trying to find a gear there for Kazuki Umeshima, that was very much like what you would see in some real-life prototype or GT racing. It's often a lot easier to get a car in a reverse and spin it around in the sim than it is in real life. A few procedures that need to go on in the real world that we don't have to do with. And Kazuki Umeshima there just getting a bit caught out, and yeah, few too many mistakes from Umeshima this race, but it has been very good fun watching him come through the field nonetheless. See if he can get past the cars of Greg Sharp and Wayne Burke before the race is done. But only 2 more laps to go around this Belle Isle circuit, and he's got a bit of ground to make up as Brenton Hobson now just having a look at Brian Borg. This has been coming up for a few laps now. Brenton Hobson's been just chipping away ever so slightly at Brian Borg, and Emily Jones actually has done a very good job to make her way past or build out a nice gap on Borg there, as they were racing very closely earlier in the race. So Hobson just not quite there at this stage. Might have to wait until turn 1 and 2 and maybe try this time to not be so eager when he gets the power out as he's coming down that long straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where a lot of these passes do have to happen, because it's such a good straight down there. To get the slipstream, it's a big braking zone at the end of it. But to get the run is so difficult because there's that crest right on the exit of turn number 2, where these cars in particular will like to line up into wheel spin, and that will be your run gone in a single heartbeat. So Hobbo really has to make something happen in this particular lap. He's right under the rear wing of Brian Borg at the moment. Another driver under pressure is Brett Loxton, having to go defensive. Sam Blacklock thinks about the inside, too far back though, but Loxton really under a bit of pressure now, but he has, to all credit, managed to get back closer to Riley Blythe as well. So a good effort there from him. Brenton Hobson now trying to get the run, and that's actually a big moment on the exit for Brian Borg, but is Hobbo close enough? I would say no, but we've seen moves come from further back before, and Hobbo will not think about it on this particular occasion, but he will only have one more chance at this.
Yeah, he's going to have to really make use. I mean, Brian made a pretty bad mistake there. I was really surprised that Brenton didn't have the overspeed to, I mean, let alone catch him, but pass him there. So maybe Brenton's car just not quite set up for the exits of these corners in general, but he does have a pretty good run here, and it might be enough for him to try it down the inside or outside at turn number 7. Going to try and make Brian Borg take a tighter line and see what Kazuki Umeshima did earlier, see if he can make a bit of that work, but unfortunately not able to get up on the side of the driver of Brian Borg to force him into that awkward position. But doing a nice job there, maybe just giving a little bit of a bump to Brian Borg as they come through turn number 11 now. And this is the last good opportunity for Brenton Hobson now. He's got to make sure that he's right up behind the bumper of Brian Borg as they come into turns number 1 and 2. So he's within a good range at the moment, taking it out very wide to the wall, almost having to pull out of the gas a little too early there, and just running a little deeper into the corner than Brian Borg is. And Brian, a little bit of oversteer as they come out, but again, maybe just that later turn in that Brian's been doing is enough. And Hobbo going around the outside in a desperate attempt to try and get past. Got good exit speed round the outside there, all over the place on the grass. Not quite able to make it work. But yeah, he's only got about half a lap to finish that off. And one person who doesn't have half a lap to go is the driver of Dane Warren as he comes through turn number 12, 13, and finally turn number 14. He has won the first iRacing official V8 Supercars race strength of field race rather at Belle.
Hover up the inside, nearly contact with Brian Borgs. They head through the tight section of corners, and he had to get the panels used. He had to lean on Brian Borg just a little bit to get the move done. But Hobbo is indeed through. But that was a very, very aggressive move, which all stemmed from that very tight right-hander. And Hobbo had to do it the long way, around the outside, almost into the wall, close quarter stuff. And he got the move done on the very last lap on Brian Borg, and Brenton Hobson will take P number 8 after what was a fantastic overtake.
Yeah, very nicely done there, and he obviously tried every little trick in his book to get that one done and was successful. So very nice job to Hobbo there, and again, a congratulations to Dane Warren for taking out the race. He led from start to finish and had a fairly commanding lead the entire time, and just Wayne Burke, I think, did he just lose a position? Umashima actually lost a spot as well. He looks like he got a slowdown of some description. I think Burke and Umashima might have gotten slowdowns as they were coming through the last few sections of corners there. So they've both lost spots to P14 and 16 respectively, and bit of a little accident coming through turn number 1 there for a few cars as they were coming over the line. But we will go to our results for you now, and Dane Warren, with a commanding performance in this race at Belle, takes out position number 1, followed by Josh K. Rogers, just 2.2 seconds behind, but never quite within striking distance throughout that race. Brady Myers having a quiet race all by his own, 5 seconds either side at least for 3rd position, final spot on the podium. So well done to Brady. Then we had Riley Blythe in 4th, holding off Brett Loxton and Sam Blacklock. Emily Jones having a quiet race after that battle earlier with Brian Borg and Corey Preston. Brenton Hobson getting that last lap pass done for position number 8. Brian Borg took out position number 9, and Jamie McKnight battled on throughout that race to come home in position number 10.
Kicking things off from P number 11 is Daniel Williams, which was a bit of a quiet drive for him, but a good result in P number 11. Steve Jansen was involved in a lot of the fighting tonight, comes home in P number 12. Greg Sharp and Wayne Burke at P13 and 14. Burke having a bit of a tough race after kicking things off from P number 8 on the grid. Brendan Jackson was down in 28th on the grid, comes home in P number 15, so a great result for him. Kazuki Umashima was a bit of an unlucky victim to be down this far in the grid, but nonetheless a very nice performance from him to get some nice drives through the field. Craig Jones in P number 17 with Marie Hrushka in 18th up, so big contact earlier on for her. David Miller in P number 19 with Wayne Taylor, your top 21 lap down, but does bring it home ahead of Jordan Ross, Tim Harris, Corey Preston, who was 6 laps down after his little airlines flight and got yeeted. Jean-Francois comes home in P number 24 with Josh Nowak, one of our first lap victims, in P number 25 with Thomas McMillan, Sam Sutton, and Mitch McLeod joining him. But Zach, 27 laps of Belle Isle, and that was action-packed from start to finish.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I missed out on the first few laps, but luckily, because the iRacing Esports Network is so fast, I was able to watch it live even when I wasn't in the race. And there were some very big accidents there and a few bizarre ones. Corey Preston trying to take the second stage of Australia's space program into his own hands, but unfortunately not making it very far and having to pit. And quite a few biffos all throughout the race, and unfortunately for Kazuki Umashima as well, putting on such a great show, but a few minor mistakes from him, meaning that he was reserved much further down the field than where I think we can all agree he definitely would have been much higher than that. But yeah, very entertaining race from start to finish, and if you have a look through the results as well, with the exception of the top 7, very mixed up from there on down compared to where people started the race. So very much looking forward to our next race here at Belle Isle. Hopefully we won't have as many shunts into the wall, but you know, at a street circuit, that is the main challenge, and a challenge it has proven to be.
Absolutely. The drivers really had to get the elbows out to make moves, but that sounds a little bit like dirt racing, where you really have to get the elbows out. And dirt racing is exactly what we're going to have on Tuesday night, because we have, of course, the Australian Sprint Car Championship once again and they're taking on the mega of dirt racing. It's Knoxville Speedway, and that's sure to be yet another exciting race. Of course, that always provides a fantastic show. So we'll see that on Tuesday night on V8 Online. On the iRacing Esports Network on Wednesday night, we have the Sprint Series Australia, round number 3, I believe it is, and that's going to be coming from Watkins Glen Boot Classic, which is a very high-speed circuit. So once again, we tend to do this all the time, but Zach, our Audis, they're not going to be the best suited for Watkins Glen, but it's going to be a tough race regardless.
Yeah, Watkins is, a challenging circuit. I believe we're doing the boot layout. I hope we're doing the boot layout because the classic boot layout, that's one of my favorites. So that's going to be good fun. I think the McLarens are going to be pretty strong, but luckily there aren't too many of those. John Peasnick, though, always very strong in that car and very strong in pretty much any car. So I think that he'll definitely be one of the people to be looking to beat this Wednesday night. But that series has been absolutely fantastic. And as we saw at Montreal last week, it's starting to become a little cleaner now. So I think we're going to have a good race. And I think that I only just found out the race was at Watkins Glen. So I think we have a little bit more practice to do, but it's going to be very fun nonetheless.
Absolutely, it will. And that's going to be a very competitive series, as it always is, but perhaps not as competitive as what we have on Sunday night, which is perhaps the biggest series we have here broadcasted on V8 Online, but it'll be shown on the iRacing Esports Network because on Sunday, V8 Supercars Online Premier Series will be taking place at the Interlagos circuit, Autodromo Carlos Pace circuit for the longer version of it. But that is going to be an incredible race. And I might have to double check if it is or not, but I believe we could have a bit of an interesting format for that race as well, which very interesting. And it's going to be a reverse grid race as part of that as well. So it's going to mix the championship up just a little bit. So Jared Filsell, who is doing so well in the championship at the moment, will have to work a little bit harder if he does find himself at the front of the field in race 1, because race 2 could be all the more difficult. But from myself here at V8 Online, on behalf of Zach and Jay Kennedy, as well, for joining me here tonight for this amazing broadcast of round number 7 of the iRacing official series. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button on the iRacing Esports Network, and we'll catch you for round number 8 next time.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.